Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Good Guys Show. I'm David Nesmith, and each week I'm talking to leaders in the business of doing good about their passions, approaches, and the challenges of running a business like theirs. Today's good guy is Anthony Fry. He's the owner of Anthony Fry Consulting. It's a Houston-based firm that specializes in a wide range of services, including business development, social media consulting, website review, care management, life coaching, and recovery coaching. Anthony's career has been as varied as it has been prestigious. He has served as Director of Business Development, Director of Operations, and Interim Executive Director of various organizations within the substance use treatment industry. Anthony's approach to helping others is all about personal development. And I, my friends, am a living testament to his success. Thank you so much for being here, Anthony, and thank you so much for everything you've done for people like me and others.
Thank you for having me, David.
All right. So, I know a lot about your background. You're the first person I've actually talked to that I've met before. But why don't you tell everybody else about your background, which is really unique in your field. And I'm not talking about just professionally. And when you decided and how you decided to leverage your experience helping others to a career in recovery coaching.
Of course. So my business career started, as a young person. I was automatically interested in fashion and spatial recognition and all the details that go into retail. So, as a young person, as a teenager, I started doing retail on the floor, doing sales, and I did that for various companies throughout Houston. I think the last sales job I had was at Neiman Marcus, but I'm not sure. It's so long ago. Um, After that, I shifted and went into corporate retail. So working behind the scenes with buyers and planners and putting shops into specific stores. And so, I'm a creative person, so I can visually see stuff. And so fashion and placing fashion really was up my alley, and I really loved it and I really thrived. So I did do that for 25 years. I think the last job I had was I worked for John Varvatos. He was a luxury men's designer, is a luxury men's designer. I had his western half of the United States in his wholesale business, and there were 80 stores, $30 million. I was busy. And so I like to tell people that every job led to the next one. So whether I loved it and thrived, or I got a job I didn't like or and struggled at, every single one of them mattered because it prepared me for the next. And that's kind of what life is like for me. It's like every moment of every day matters to me because all the things I've been through, all the hardships and struggles and trauma and joys and successes and thriving, all of that matters because that is who shows up for you today. And that's who shows up for my clients every single day.
Yeah. It's so funny thinking back on your career, the way you just described it. I feel like your retail experience, on the floor experience, sort of gave you experience in having empathy and listening to people and responding in kind and kind of returning the energy, or at least finding ways to shift the energy. Your sort of the corporate experience and the merchandising experience was probably a great way to practice having a vision and seeing it to fruition, which every business owner, entrepreneur needs to be able to do. And your the management, especially on such a huge scale,
Yeah,
obviously gave you ways to help manage people and to
right.
motivate, which is also really important to what you're doing right now. Um, so, okay, well, kind of if we're backing up to the question,
Mhm.
what kind of how all of that path led to what you're doing now? Uh,
That's right.
yes.
David, the common thread that I was thinking about as you were saying that is being on the sales floor, being in management, being at corporate. The one thing that I'm really good at is communication.
Mhm.
And so being on the sales floor, you are communicating, you're talking, you're interacting. And so that just led to one thing led to another. And so that is kind of in a nutshell my retail career. But, you know, towards the end of that career, there was things that were happening in my life and I was shifting and changing internally. And so for me, meditation became a very important thing in my life. I tell people, there was a time where I meditated for a day and not a week. I meditated for 2 days and not for 2 years. Like I couldn't get consistent until that period of time. And so one of the meditation I did every single day was, God, please let me put my gifts to use in my work life. I meditated on that every single day for months because I felt a shift. I wanted to get out of a retail merchandising role and really help people because of my own life story.
Mhm.
And so I did that. And then, sure enough, I knew some people who owned a treatment center. They know my past and my recovery, and they invited me to come back and work for them. And so that was the shift in my career and in my life. And so I want to talk all about that. That was great.
Well, feel free, go on. That's great, it really is,
um,
and it's, um, I'll let everybody in on a little secret. You've told me that before, that meditation, and I internalized it, and, the vision for my company is a different way of saying that, which is using my powers for good,
yeah,
is
yeah,
what you were praying to do.
yeah.
So that sort of gave me chills when you said it. I was like, "Oh my god, that's where I got it from Anthony." Anyway, yeah, keep going.
Yeah, so in order to keep going, though, I think I need to back up.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And I'm going to share just in a general way. If you go to my website, you will see kind of a bio on me.
Fry.com.
Life was not so good as a child, and things were really tough and rough and sometimes tragic, to be honest. And so, I had that childhood, and then I made a decision that I would never be like them. And not too long after that, as a teenager, very early 20s, I had recreated that life for myself that I never wanted. And so in my early 20s, after, being in trouble a lot and broken relationships and lots of consequences, I ended up changing my life for good. And so when I was 25, I decided I needed to stop drinking. And so I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't be in this field. I don't know. I doubt I would be in this field today if I hadn't had that experience. And so, when I talk about all that childhood and teenage and young adult experiences that I had in my life, when I talk about all those decades of retail experience, all of that comes together, like I said earlier, to have me be who I am to show up here today. So I worked in treatment for several years, running and developing and doing all those things. But what I really knew is that I wanted one-on-one, face-to-face to be helping people. And I knew a lot of people who got their license to be a clinician, and I knew that's not exactly who I am and what I wanted to do. I wanted to do coaching. So I started coaching, and I wanted to be a coach because coaching is different than therapy, and they're not the same thing. And so I'm very clear with my clients, and I'm very clear with therapists. They're different, and people probably need both. I need both from time to time. So I started my own business at the beginning of the pandemic, and that was, what it probably is for any new business owner creating a new business. It was a little nervous and it was a little exciting and it was all these things. But really, from the start, I really had a great response from people. And I think the thing that really helped me, like I said earlier, is that every job leads to the next. And so I had had this exposure here in Texas and a little bit across the country with people who were in the treatment industry, who I knew and had developed years of relationships with. And so I really took off when I started my own business because my model is a little different from anyone else's. I have not met anyone who does what I do like I do it. And that's what I want to tell anyone who's starting their own business. figure out the way that you want to do it that makes your heart happy, that matches with your skills and your talents. Go and do it in that way because you'll be great at it, just as I'm great at doing it my way. And no two are alike, or that I've found anyway.
Anthony, I noticed one thing you talk about is your approach being all about personal development. Can you sort of, elaborate on that? What does that mean?
Yeah, so I work in the substance use and mental health field, and I have not ever come across people who have identical situations or manifestations of those things. And so, what I do in my practice is I meet people exactly where they are, and then we go from there because everyone is so different. And so, um, I think the ability to communicate, the empathy that I have, I feel some feelings sometimes from people. I can read people really well. I'm hyper vigilant with my clients and pay attention to what they say and what they don't say. And so it's all very customized to help people.
Well, what's it like to be one of your clients? What do you I guess what the question is, what do you do for them? How do you work with them?
Yeah, so for my model, a lot of people will call it case management, but I've changed the name for my business model to care management because I don't feel like my clients are cases. I feel like they're people. And so in my model, what I'm doing is if they come out of a residential treatment or a mental health treatment and they have a treatment plan provided by that facility, I'm helping the individual achieve all the things on the plan. If they don't come out with a plan or they don't go, I create a plan for them. And so, there's therapists, there's psychiatrists, there could be intensive outpatient clinicians, there could be lots of people taking care. And so my model is I'm communicating with all those people to see, are they showing up? Are they participating? Are they showing up on time? Are they getting everything out of the session that they need? And then I take all of that information and I take it back to the client and I meet with them locally. I'll meet with them face to face, or if they're not local across the country, I meet with them on Zoom and I'm coaching them through any kind of struggles they're having, like, oh, I don't want to go to that thing anymore. I don't like that therapist or whatever. There's lots of barriers that new people put up to not get care. And so I'm taking all of that information and coaching them through all of that. And in my model, I am in the beginning specifically for sure, it's a daily interaction. So I might Zoom with them once a week or twice a week, but I'm on the phone with them every other day of that, checking in to make sure are they okay, are they not? And then I'm also available to them 24 hours a day for emergency.
That's so funny because that's how it started. My working with you started in a whole different sort of relationship. Uh,
Right. You
I,
were getting me ready for all this, I think.
well, that led to, you know, all the others. I hope none of them are as high maintenance as I was at that time. So who do you work with? Who are your your best sort of sweet spot clients?
So that is a great question. And I think I used to have an answer to that, but it's not so simple anymore. Um, so when I first started my practice, I really wanted the practice to only help women. I really wanted to focus on women because my relationship with women is so kind of instantaneous and deep and fulfilling. I connect very well with the women, but the universe sent me two really high-powered men back to back, and so I was like, okay, let's do this. It's about me opening my own mind to being open to who the clients are that are sent to me. What happens in the beginning is that there's a chemistry check with me and the client. We'll get on Zoom, we'll ask questions, we'll tell stories, we'll see if there's a vibe, as the kids say these days. And if there isn't one from either side, then it's a no, right? So I've had people and I'm like, I don't think I'm the one for you. Thank you so much. And certainly other people have been like, no, Anthony, you're not the one either. So, luckily I have good self-esteem. And so I found that, I love working with women. That works well. Really strong, successful men. I do well with them because I think in the male dominated workforce, there can be a lot of posturing with one another, and then I don't do that, so I get in. I also had a family I've known for a long time say, "Hey, there's a 19-year-old we want you to help," and I'm like, "Oh, I don't do 19-year-olds. I don't do young." And it turned out I did work with him, and he is in Switzerland in chef school, and he's doing great. So it's all about the chemistry, and you talked about that earlier.
uh Doing this podcast, been one of the really neatest things I've learned is that, and I mentioned this a lot, is that my experience up until now has solely been 12 step. I've only worked with 12 step, but what I'm discovering, first discovery, was that there are a lot of different approaches and treatments and modalities in working with people who have addictions. And there are, a lot of even definitions of addiction, and and all of that. So is that what you're helping people do as well? Is that part of it, is finding what's going to work for them to stay sober or clean?
Yeah, and deal with their mental health. Yeah, and so it's all very customized. Every single person is different, and every not everyone wants a 12 step or receives it, can get all they need out of that. And some people may need different modalities of therapy, EMDR or talk therapy or whatever. And so for me, what I'm doing, and I say this to clients all the time, it's like when you see a photographer in the Serengeti and they have these long lenses, recovery from mental health and substance abuse is tweaking all the time. So whatever that lens is focused on, you have to tweak to get a clear picture. So I too spent a great long time in 12-step recovery before I got in the business. And so I struggled in the beginning too. I'm like, well, this was the way. And what I know is that my way is not everyone's way. I need to help them find their way. And so I'm all for it. I'm a Gemini, so all that putting together those puzzle pieces really, I love and I thrive at that. So that way, I need to figure out what works for people. And so when I'm dealing with them and talking to them every day, I can tell, like, oh, that therapist may not be the one. Let me find somebody else. Like those meds don't seem to be right for you. Something seems off. Let's get back to the psychiatrist.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and that's something also that, you should know for your own marketing, and maybe you're already doing this, but a sort of a differentiator for you from a lot of the other people I talk to is that you are sort of seeing people as individuals with individual, struggles. And so many of the people I talk about, not that I'm judging either way, but so many or only see the addicted, you know, person,
Mhm.
because for them that's they're sort of siloing the problem. So that's something that's definitely different about you, is that you're looking at people holistically and finding a way to help them that's going to work for them, which I
Yeah.
think is really exciting. So if you don't mind, well, let's switch over to the business, running your business. A lot of people, again, I've talked to oddly, a lot of people who started their business or their recovery or something like that, right before, a few months before COVID,
Right.
which has drastically changed the way, really all healthcare and services has operated. Telehealth is a big thing now. It wasn't before then. Um, Also, it was, it's a struggle starting a business at that time. So tell
Mhm.
me about that. What was that like, and what kind of challenges did you have, and how did you overcome those?
Yeah, so I think part of the gift for me is I've been on the planet so long, like I'd seen a lot of things and experienced a lot of things, and I had a lot of business background to help me with my things. And what I learned in management was, I needed to get people to do what they were good at and coach them into things maybe they weren't so great at. And so I'm a one-man band. I don't have anybody below me, above me, around me. I just have a solo practice, and that's really all I want. Um, and so I really needed to focus on what are my talents and then what are not my talents, and outsource the things that are not my talents. Relationships I can do that. I'm great at that. I love doing that. That is just kind of who I am. So what I did is I hired a CPA firm, and they help small businesses get started. And they do all the licensing, and they do all the taxes, and do everything with the state. And then they pay my taxes every quarter and do all that. I'm not someone who enjoys any of that stuff, and so I just outsourced it. So my recommendation to everybody is figure out what you're good at, figure out what you're not good at, and try to figure out how can I put that to somebody else. Because what I know is I had a name, I have a reputation, I have connections, and so I spent all of my time with those relationships getting like, okay, I'm not here anymore, this is what I'm doing, I'm starting my own practice, I'm starting this and doing that. And so I needed all the bandwidth to focus on what I'm great at to get clients.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate to that because I'm good at strategy and 30,000 foot thinking and idea developing and sort of that creative part. I am terrible at accounting and project management. You have to be so detail oriented and even executing on the ground level. My my ideas, I can come up with I need other people to actually do them, because I'm
You're
not.
a visionary.
Yeah, yeah. I see that more kind of like, here's the direction we need to go. Here's the kind of things we need to do. Somebody else do those.
Yeah.
What about attracting you mentioned that you sort of went through an evolution of the people that you were targeting in terms of as your best relationships, with women.
Yeah.
And that sort of evolved into high-powered men, which is involved into a lot of other things. How were you initially finding clients? Was it through your
Yeah.
with the rehabs? Was it, were you doing, going and meeting people directly? I hear about that a lot too, with people who develop relationships with rehab centers or hospitals or detox centers, as a referral, a source.
Yeah, so the very first client I got was from a residential treatment in Austin, and it was a relationship I'd had for years. And when I was speaking to the owner and telling her what I was doing, she already knew me as a human being because we had known each other for so long, and she already cared for me. And when I told her what I was doing, she was like, "Amazing, amazing! You're going to be great at that. Let me send you somebody." And so, you know, I know that most every job that I ever got was because I knew somebody already at that place. When people know me, they know who I am and they're like, oh, yes, I can see that. I can see you doing that. So I really leveraged all my relationships that I had. And so I had lots of relationships with treatment providers, with private practice therapists, with psychiatrists, with detox centers. And so it was just me circling back with the people I knew in the beginning and saying, hey, I've shifted gears. This is what I'm going to do. And I'd already built up such good energy with these people that they were like, okay, yes, yes. And so they just started to come more so than I thought. And it was overwhelming. And this isn't really the business part, but you know me well enough already to know that meditation and spirituality are the cornerstone of my entire life. Everything stands on top of that. And so prayer and meditation were huge for me in the beginning, always, but in the beginnings too. And so yeah, it was that and relationships.
Yeah. Are you doing anything now other than that? Are you doing, any paid marketing or advertising or anything like that?
Oh, for my business, I have a website that I pay for a little bit every month, but I don't do any paid advertising. What I found for me, and this again goes to people find your skills and what you're good at and go with that. I know that I'm good with one-on-one relationships or very small group relationships, and so I don't go to conferences. I don't do any paid advertising to strangers. I don't do any of that because that does not work for me. If it works for you, then do it. But what I do is I have relationships or I'm introduced to new people and then I build really great relationships. And so every client that I get, None of them come from a stranger. They all come from people I've met over the years and built relationships where they can see how much I care about the client, how I'm willing to go to the ends of the earth for them, and they trust me with their clients.
I am a firm believer and have been for a long time that is all things being equal, it really comes down to whether or not, you're fun to be with. My filter is, would I want to spend a 3-hour layover with this person at an airport? If the
Mm,
answer is no, then I'm not gonna hire them. And I think that's the way a lot of people make decisions. I think it's important to be obviously to be excellent at what you do, but I think sometimes as or more important is to be somebody that is fun or at least pleasant to be around.
it's
All right. So,
key.
I think that's everything, you've given everybody so much information and I'm hoping that, people who need your services can find you. Let's see. So I ask everybody, 2 questions. And the first one of those questions is, what gets you out of bed in the morning?
um, it's so simple. It's people. It's my care for people. It's my love for people. It's my want for them to have a better life than they had yesterday. Because I personally know how hard some of this stuff is. And I remember how hard it is. And so if I can make it better, it's the people. It's always the people.
Uh, so what keeps you awake at night?
The people. It's the people. It's maybe I have a client who's struggling or is going back to work for the first time and didn't behave well before they, left and went to get care. And so people keep me up at night because I care and I worry. And I'm always, like I said, I'm a Gemini. I'm always trying to put the puzzle pieces together, like, can we do this? Can we do that? And so it's people and it's people.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I think that's what is probably the only thing worth staying up at night for. Okay, so is there anything else that you want people to know either about, how you run your business or,
Um,
things about you that some person might find appealing? I don't mean to
yeah.
slip the question better because that sounds like, is there anything appealing? Um, Anthony, is there anything else you want people to know about you and your business?
Um, my business is very customized and it's very small. I only take 6 clients at a time because my availability is it needs to be so broad, and so I very much tailor it to just 6 people at a time. And otherwise, I don't think I could be as available to the people as needed.
Yeah, that's good to know. Um,
Yeah.
well, how can people reach you?
Yeah, so I have a website out there with um, some great information and all the things that I do. It's anthonyfry.com.
Awesome. Well, Anthony, on behalf of myself, one of the reasons why I want to do this podcast is because I can't do what you're doing. I can't do what a lot of people are doing. And but I am somebody who was kept alive and is kept sort of thriving because of people like you. So, and you personally. And so, on behalf of myself and all the people like me who you're touching and helping find freedom, I just want to thank you for everything you do.
It's my pleasure, really.
It's been a great time talking to you as always. And again, thank you for your time. I know you're a busy guy.
Thank you, David.